Lexus has always taken a bit of a backseat to fashion fads, over-engineered tech and, well, following the crowd in general. It likes to focus more on fit and finish rather than what's trending. And this, the RX 450h Plus, is its latest Volvo XC90 Range Rover Sport and BMW X5 rivaling SUV. And it's a plug-in hybrid. So, what does a Lexus SUV that rivals all of those aforementioned models look like? Let's take a look. Now, there is a fine line between class and pretentiousness with car interiors, and I think Lexus walks that line perfectly with the RX. It's quite a simple layout in here actually. You've got your big 14-inch touchscreen, a few dampened buttons and toggles here, steering wheel controls and instrument cluster graphics. So it's quite clean and quite functional. But the real hero of this interior is just the overall quality. I mean, there's leather in all the places you'd expect and places you wouldn't really expect. Soft touch materials everywhere. It's just lovely. You've even got these nice wood inlays on the steering wheel as well. It is really, really nice. The beige leather inserts and the leather seats and the leather armrest help add a nice bit of pop too. And I know a lot of people, me included, use the term couch-like seats quite a bit, but honestly, these really are couch-like seats. You can actually feel your bum sinking into them when you sit in them. Very, very nice. And you've also got soft close everything as well. So you've got a little compartment here, you've got the glove box which closes nice and softly. You've also got the doors which have a nice reassuring thud to them. Also, the windows, they just feel really nice. They feel like they're being lowered by a bloke above the car with a rope, a la a theatre curtain. Bit of a pompous reference for you there. This is a Lexus at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, you can tell that the Lexus engineers have finessed the hell out of this interior, and it really shows. Now we have the Takumi trim, and with this you get pretty much everything you'd ever want. There's cameras everywhere, including 360 and aerial view. The camera display can be viewed in the rear view mirror as well. There's wireless phone charging, sat-nav, park assist with remote parking option, a head-up display, a Mark Levinson sound system. Don't know what that is, but it sounds expensive. A whole library of personalisable options, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, although the latter is wired only. And you also get your usual DAB radio, Bluetooth, parking sensors, triple zone climate control, etc, etc. I mean, there really is too much kit to list. All I'd say with the trim levels, and this can be said for a lot of luxury cars, is just make sure you go through the spec sheet with a fine-toothed comb, because some trims, especially in this RX, exclude certain things that you just think they would include. Leather and synthetic leather being one of them, so just make sure you pay attention to that, especially if you're spending a lot of money. You don't want a sour taste in the mouth when you end up getting pleather. Anyway, Lexus pulls off techie quite well in the RX actually. I mean, this touchscreen, this 14-inch touchscreen is pretty good functionality-wise. I mean, it's not going to blow you away. I guess the only sort of gripe I have functionality-wise is these steering wheel controls, which I also moaned about in the MX as well. I mean, they're okay. Once you get used to them, they are pretty clever, but they don't have any dedicated functions to each button. They're kind of flexible, which is good and a bit confusing at the same time, especially if you're not that confident when it comes to programming your own tech. But yeah, that's only really a little thing. And even aside to its impressive kit levels and quality in here, practicality is really good as well. You've got a little shelf here for your phone, some storage under here with the wireless charging. You've got an armrest that opens both sides, always like that. You've got big door bins, decent sized glove box. But I think my favourite feature is this flexible cup holder, which can go up and down like that, just in case you decide to go large at Starbucks. Or Cafe Nero, that's fancier, isn't it? Let's say Cafe Nero, because it's a Lexus. Oh yeah, these door handles as well need to be pulled twice. That's a bit annoying. I think it's a safety feature more than anything else, but there you go. So those suede inlays make their way to the back as well, which is very nice. And together with the, again, couch-like seats, they help create a proper chauffeur-like experience, something you'd associate more with a long wheelbase saloon rather than an SUV. And yeah, it's just really nice back here. You've got heated and cooled seats, which are reclined for easy napping, USB charging, big door bins for drinks and snacks, a fold-down armrest with cup holders and storage, a panoramic glass roof to give it an airy feel, privacy blinds for kids or self-important adults. I mean, it really is spot on back here, and there's plenty of space to move around as well, thanks to this almost completely flat floor. I mean, you can move about and even sit 3 adults side by side and have plenty of space to go around. Yeah, very nice. I think it's probably one of the best rounded rears ever. Cracking. Child locks on. Now, on paper, this boot doesn't seem that big for an SUV. You're looking at around 460 litres, which is a lot smaller than many of its rivals. But in person, it doesn't feel all that small and inflexible. I mean, you've got a nice low load lip here, so lifting objects in shouldn't be too difficult. It's also nice and wide, with space running right into the wheel arches. And you've even got space for the charging cables under the boot floor. And you can even fold those seats down here with some quick release levers. Well, I say quick release levers. There you go. A little bit slow, but they do the job, especially if you're elderly and you don't want to be going and moving the seats yourself. They fold up as well. Come on. There you go. Like I say, a bit slow, but very premium, the fact that they do it electronically, and you can operate those seats with some buttons at the side of the back seats as well if you want to do it from round the side. And in fact, those slow folding but premium rear seats sum up the RX's character quite well, I reckon. They're calm and collected, they take the time and don't really care who has to wait around for them. The way it drives is pretty similar, actually. Now, the big highlight behind the wheel of the RX is without doubt how quiet and comfortable it is. I mean, I think it's up there with one of the most serene cars I've ever driven, and it's probably a car you'd much rather be a passenger in than a driver, to be honest. And have a little nap in the process. Insulation from wind, road, engine noise is almost non-existent. The ride's nice and comfortable over bumps. You know, it doesn't bounce and wallow over bumps either. There is a little bit of firmness just to keep it planted, and that's thanks in part to its variable suspension. And the steering's nice and progressive as well. It doesn't have that awkward elastic-like twang at 3/4 turn. It's nice and progressive right through, just really easy and smooth to drive. Now, the RX does feel quite heavy in the twisty stuff. It is a 2.2 ton car at the end of the day, but it never feels unsure of itself. I mean, yes, it does lean a little bit, but it's, you know, it's not going to give you a squeaky bum. It always does feel secure, and there's plenty of grip on offer. And it's quite obvious that Lexus has prioritised comfort over everything else with the RX. It's kind of gone meh when it comes to driving dynamics, and that'll probably suit the vast majority of Lexus drivers anyway. Now, this RX does feature an eCVT automatic gearbox, which if there was one tiny gripe I had with its overall driving experience, it's probably the gearbox. You know, it can be a little bit hesitant when you're nipping out at junctions, and if you put your foot down, the revs are going to bounce up and you're getting a roar from the engine. But A, you don't really hear it because the cabin's so hushed anyway, and B, the same can be said for a lot of automatic gearboxes anyway. Now, speaking of being hesitant off the mark, one thing that isn't hesitant is the RX when it's in EV mode, because you get instantaneous power, you get plenty of torque, and it's quite nippy and enjoyable to drive. And the switch from petrol to electric mode and vice versa is really seamless, further enhanced by its hushed cabin. I mean, any little switches and changes under the bonnet there, you really can't hear when you're in the cabin. Now, Lexus reckons on a full charge, you'll get around 40 miles in the RX 450h Plus. Now, we found that to be about 35 miles, but I think with a lot of conservative driving, you can probably push that to 40 miles. Now, that's not as much as some of its BMW and Range Rover plug-in rivals, but it's still, you know, it's still a very usable amount of electric range, especially if you've got a relatively short commute in the morning, especially when you consider that battery replenishing time takes anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So, you know, it is very usable on a day-to-day work-life basis. Now, the RX 450h Plus sits in the middle of the RX range between two standard hybrids, and it makes use of a 2.5 litre four-cylinder petrol engine, an 18.1 kilowatt per hour battery pack, and 2 electric motors, one on each axle. And these motors actually help give it all-wheel drive in certain conditions. Now, power-wise, all in, you're looking at around 300 horsepower, and a 0 to 62 miles per hour sprint will take you just 6.5 seconds. So it's pretty nippy. Now, just like with other plug-in hybrids, you do have various different hybrid modes to choose from. There's full EV mode, which I mentioned earlier. You also get a standard hybrid mode, which will flick between petrol and electric when it deems appropriate. And there's also charge hold mode, I should say. And when you've charged your battery, that will keep hold of the charge without using it in hybrid mode, so you can use it at a more appropriate time, let's say when you're in an urban environment rather than on the motorway. Now, the key difference with the 450h Plus compared to most other plug-in hybrids is that it can actually function as a standard hybrid when you haven't got any electric power left in that battery. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but you'd be surprised that the vast majority of plug-in hybrids, once that battery charge is gone, it's going to function like a standard petrol, and you're probably not going to get very efficient figures. I mean, some petrol SUV plug-in hybrids that have run out of electric battery, you're going to be looking at around 30 miles per gallon, which isn't very good. Now, that's not the case with the 450h Plus. It will function as a standard hybrid and replenish that battery as best as it can with regenerative braking and things like that. So instead of just getting 30 and below MPG figures when your batteries run out, I reckon you're probably going to be looking at around 40 miles per gallon. You know, that's not mind-bogglingly efficient, but it is better than 30 and below. Now, when you have got battery, in terms of general efficiency, we've been looking at around 60 miles per gallon, which for a car this big and this heavy is pretty good. Now, if you're a company car driver and you're thinking about pulling the trigger on an RX 450h Plus, you're looking at an 8% BIK tax rating for 2023 and 2024. Summing up this RX is quite easy, actually. It's everything a Lexus fanboy would want in an SUV. It's lavish, it looks the part, it's got loads of tech, and it's even got state-of-the-art hybrid tech as well. If you're a BMW or a Range Rover fan, you might be wondering why it doesn't offer sporty handling and unrivaled off-roading capabilities to go with all of that aforementioned comfort and shiny stuff. That's fine. Wonder away, the RX just probably isn't for you. I mean, we are very spoiled nowadays with cars. We expect them to offer everything from either end of the sporty and comfort spectrum, especially when they're expensive. Now, the RX doesn't do that. It doesn't offer a bit of everything. But if you're after premium, calm and collected, a bit like those slowly folding rear seats, then the RX is a very, very compelling option.